Yeah, it's just funny. Like some people hear a name and they're like, "Oh, that one." Other than Mitch, I think we all got names that they're just familiar. I tease Mitch
There aren't
all
very
the
many
time.
of me.
Yeah, I tease Mitch all the time. I'm like, "Yeah, you got a name that sounds like a law office when you say your first, middle, and last name." So, just slap partner LL whatever on the back.
Yeah, yeah. Welcome to the offices of Mitchell Franklin Gregory.
Yeah, see,
There you go.
associates.
and associates.
So, all right, well, that's gonna do it for the cold open. So. Anyways, welcome to the NerdBrand podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Jason. That's John. That's Mitch. And this is Matt Jones. Not that Matt Jones. You'll find out later. You watch the code open, you know exactly what we're referencing. So Matt is in industrial design. That should get everybody like, what's that? So we're going to let Matt talk about that for a bit, but just kind of briefly, for over 20 years, Matt was a designer, builder, creator, and problem solver at GE Appliances. I'll say that more clearly this time. GE Appliances. I swear I don't drink before 12 or at all.
Enunciate.
Yeah, enunciate. He's managed teams to develop new brand engagements and experiences from trade shows to corporate events to the showroom floor. There's even more to talk about your history there, but I'm going to pause and kind of let you introduce yourself and kind of share some of that real quick.
Sure. So, I've been in the industrial design world for the last 23 years, previously with GE. Before that, straight from school, but I had a lot of experience working in Hasbro at the toy industry. I also worked at a design consultancy up in Columbus, Ohio. And then my last internship was at GE, which led to my career there. And a lot of people ask industrial design, like, what is industrial design? And kind of the simplest way I always described it is anything that you buy that's a manufactured good, an industrial designer at some point in time has touched it, either for human factors, design aesthetics, how it looks, how it works, how it functions. Typically, they partner up with engineers and makers on how all that's put together, but they're really tied in with how it looks, feels, and touches your body. So,
kind of user experience.
It's all about, it's user experience, old school user experience, not everything that's online now, right? Although that's right. Yeah, that's a big part of their world now too. So
yeah, you mentioned Hasbro, and I'm a Transformers guy. Yeah. So I want to hear a little bit about like what was it like there, and what were some of the things maybe you worked on, if you can share.
Sure. So when I was there, this would have been the mid 90s, and the Star Wars license was just wrapping up, was about to expire, and Lucasfilms was going out and basically interviewing all the toy manufacturers to see who was going to get the next license and what was going to happen in that. And so I was on a small little team that was coming up with just, blue sky ideas for what we could do to manufacture toys, to show Lucas, to try and win that bid. And so, there was a lot of kit bashing, taking parts of existing toys, other things, kind of just like what they did in the original movie, right? I mean, those original movies, all those spaceships were all kit bashed off of different model kits and things like that. And so, we put together all kinds of things, from a kid's working Nerf set of Boba Fett outfit to all kinds of small, dioramas and, looking for new characters, obscure characters. One of the things that happened, we went to this, it wasn't even really called a Comic-Con back then. It was just this kind of little convention. And like, we're all there and we're talking, and like some of these people, and this is 20 some odd years ago, they're like, hey, you have plans to make a, I can't even think of the name, like XYZ, and you're like, I don't even know who that is. And you got to go through like, the Lucas film archive and find out that there's this one guy in the way back who's on the screen for a split second, and that's who that guy is. And this guy, wanted to know who he was and if we're going to make a toy of him. I mean, it was just kind of bizarro. Getting back to the Hasbro, I mean, it was a great place to work. It was a lot of fun. Got to work on a lot of different things, meet a lot of different folks. And, one of the things that was probably, I always tell this story. So we were on the same floor as the Nerf team. And so 4:30, 5 o'clock on Friday, it was just this massive Nerf war. I mean, everybody was cubicle farm, heads popping up, and just Nerf bullets going everywhere. And it was a ton of fun.
I guess at GE, you didn't like throw washer drums and things like that at each other at 4:30 on a Friday.
Not for fun, probably.
No, when I was on the industrial design team early on, it was a small group. There was only about 7 or 8 of us there at that time. So this would have been like early 2000. We tried to bring a lot of fun to it as well. But, let's be honest, white goods are not as much fun as toys.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the thing I want to kind of start walking into is like getting the understanding, like this goes beyond toys. This, like that refrigerator looks like it does for a reason. It just didn't just happen to be that way. I worked at a place that did fabrication for 10 years, and we created and fabricated the doors for the 25 and 27 cubic foot ones. So that's how we knew it. And that the mechanisms we had to buy to get the stainless so that we didn't scratch it, because just itty bitty scratch, it would get rejected.
Yep.
All the prints came from GE. I mean, all those designs came from somewhere for us to be able to make the door.
Right.
And now it's kind of fun to kind of know that like you're the guy.
Yeah. It could have been me, or it could have been one of a couple other guys I worked with. But you're exactly right. I mean, that refrigerator looks the way it does. The car looks the way it does. The seat in your car feels the way it does for a certain reason. And all how you touch the steering wheel, where the buttons are. I mean, everything about a car, an industrial designer has gone through to the minutia of everything, right? And anything else that you buy from a store, it's going to have an industrial designer's fingerprints on it at some point in time in its journey.
Yeah, that's the interesting part of it to me. Like when I first hear the industrial design term, I think of industrial things like manufactured goods, like cars and fridges and washers and dryers and things like that. But the other side of it is, technology, phones, computers, laptops, microphones, everything, music equipment. Like it's just incredible how much design expertise goes into, the ergonomics of things, and then functionality, and then beauty, right? I mean, you got the form and the function. So it's a field I've not really thought about a whole lot. So I'm glad to have you and have stumbled across your LinkedIn profile, I think.
Another one that, I was just thinking about bottles, right? I mean, any kind of bottle, liquor bottle. I mean, liquor bottles are designed in such a way, not only to get as many as you can in the box, but also to stand out on the shelf, right? Mm-hmm. Everything from the shape of the bottle, the way the neck looks, to the color of the packaging, right? All of those are things that are taken in consideration as part of the design process, and making sure that it's on that product's brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's all part of it too.
And category, a whiskey bottle is different from vodka, and
exactly,
it's got to be. People expect a certain look and feel and a certain shape and form.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, especially with liquor now, is now you've got all there's so many varieties now of bourbon, rum, vodka, gin, and there's crossovers now between the different liquors. I mean, you've got vodka aged in bourbon barrel. Everything's aged in a bourbon barrel these days. I think I was aged in a bourbon barrel, but
I wish I was.
I have no comment to either of those.
So you get these now you've got crossovers now in the liquor segment with from a design standpoint. So, I mean, it's fascinating. You were talking about ergonomics, Jonathan. If somebody likes to cook a lot, ergonomics is kind of important there too. When you look at knives, cutlery, yeah, any kind of cutlery, any kind of kitchen tool. Walk into a gourmet store, and the variety of brands, the variety of shapes and sizes, colors, it just going to your point about the depth and breadth that industrial design of the things that it touches it's infinite. It's infinite.
Yeah. It is anything that's manufactured that you purchase. An industrial designer somewhere has touched that.
I mean, I'm looking over your shoulder, Matt, at that toggle switch, that light switch over your left shoulder. Well, it's my left. I mean, an industrial designer, as compared to the one on the other side, an industrial designer designed that. The switch plate, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about, let's just get this one over with. Jay Leno.
Yeah, the Jay Leno. So, back in the day, GE owned NBC Universal, and NBC, of course, had the Tonight Show with Jay Leno. And through that, giant conglomerate, I got connected up with him when he needed a kitchen in his garage. And
it was a 2-car garage or 3.
It's not really a garage, yes, in the way that we think of it. They were more like airplane hangars. They actually were airplane hangars. He had several of them to house all of his vehicles. I don't know what his current count is, but it was quite extensive. He had, I'm pretty sure it was well over 100 cars and something like 1,000 motorcycles. But the thing that I found interesting with all of that, though, was he really had created this little microcosm, right? I mean, it was an office space. He had full-time crew there working. They were all experts in their field, either working on old cars, machining parts, telling the stories of the cars. And it really was like a little museum, and he had built that up, and really it was kind of built around his personal brand too, right? I mean, you think about Jay Leno and his brand, most people think of the Tonight Show, the comedian, the funny guy, right? But really his personal brand, I mean, every time I saw him outside of the Tonight Show, he was in like a denim shirt and looked like he was a grease monkey, and there was nothing more that he liked than to be over there wrenching on one of his cars with one of the guys and talking shop and all that, right? And so anyhow, I got brought in to design this kitchen for his garage, and so we did that. And I think one of the things that was probably to me the most amazing was, here I am, I'm just some podunk guy coming out to California from Kentucky. He was there when I arrived. He wanted to personally take me through his garage, tell his story, so that I understood what it was that he was trying to accomplish. It was more than just a break room, right? It was a space for his crew to go and make meals and hang out and have those family type moments within that space. So, I just thought it was incredible that he took that amount of time, and of course, then he got on his jet bike and went off to the Tonight Show. A couple bumpers, but
to make a couple more million.
Yeah. He got on his jet bike and left. Kind of like Batman does, except he wasn't.
But it really was an amazing. it was an amazing experience. So,
is that the coolest thing you've ever had? Your hands on from a design perspective, and or kind of like what's the thing you're most proud of in your career, or that you found the most exhilarating or rewarding?
So that's a great question. I mean, I really did enjoy working on that kitchen for Jay, but I think probably the thing that I'm most proud of that I worked on over my career was it was called the Big Event. It was basically a national sales meeting that we had, but the Big Event stood for Build, Innovate, Grow, and so it was all about building the salespeople's their skill sets, showing how the business was growing, showing how we were innovating, but also giving them the tools to be able to innovate themselves, their careers, and be able to grow. Both the business, the bottom line, and themselves. And it was over a 4 or 5 day coursework where we would bring them in about 300 at a time over 2 weeks, and be able to have their time in the seats was precious, right? So we're pulling them out of the field. How do we get this story of what we're trying to do across to them in an engaging, insightful, and an emotional way? Because then when you get it to the emotional factor, that's where it starts to stick, right? And so we had to really think about what that entire 4 or 5 days looked like, and how do we do it. And it wasn't about keeping them in the seats, it was about keeping them in the seats for the right amount of time, but then getting them up moving, getting them into other experiences, and creating that overall experience throughout that event, right? Everything down to what the meals and drinks were like, and were they themed, and did we have theme nights, and did we take them out around town, and what were the other touch points outside of just the learning activities that we had to have. I ran that for 7 years. I think that was, I mean, to me, that was probably the coolest thing that I got to work on, building that, working with leadership, and driving that bus home. So
Very cool. I mean, it's the way you described it to me. I think when we very first met, it was like you built a city in a few days or in a week.
well, I mean, yeah, that was probably more in lines with our trade show. So, like when we think about iBiz KBiz, there we won Best in Show in 2020. That was 20,300 square feet. I mean, that's half the size of a football field. And we were doing 7 brands, bringing each one of those 7 brands to life in its own distinct way. And you really had to make that sensory. It's not just all visual, it's not auditory, right? You've got everything down to smells. What were the smells that were going on? We had chefs cooking, so there was taste and smell. Could you go up and touch everything? And it's like each one of those things had to be on brand for the brand that it represented. And every attendee had to know when they walked into that footprint of that brand, which one they were in, right? Because you wanted them to feel different and distinct.
Mhm.
Yeah, very distinctive.
And so that was a super cool. But yeah, I mean, that, you talk about building a city. That was building a city in basically 4 days, letting the show run for 3 days, and tear it down to move to another location, and have 2 days to tear it down and load it back up on a truck. So
Lots of sleep and sitting around, huh?
a lot of sleeping, a lot of just sitting around, a lot of finger pointing.
That's very cool. I know Jason's been out at a bunch of events, and we've been out to a handful together, and it's a hard thing to pull off. I mean, I've never been in the seat where I've got to organize any type of event really. But I know just seeing those people running around as the event's getting set up, hosting, you're a host of a bunch of people. It's a whirlwind of a job to me.
Yeah, and it's also one of those things that it's like it's either in your blood or it's not. Like you either get it or you don't. Because if you don't get it, you look at everyone like they're crazy. Because you're just like, what are you people doing? Like, get out of here. This is nuts. My wife's that way, right? I mean, how I met my wife was through her parents who were in the trade show industry.
Mm.
And it's in both of their blood. And she went out when she was in high school to work some trade shows with the company that her parents were working at. And she came back and she says, I will never do that again. You all are nuts. And and she refuses to have any part of it, and yet she married me. So
I mean, it takes a unique personality that if you love that sort of thing, then you're, but if you're annoyed, it's kind of like if you don't like people, well, you probably shouldn't work in the service industry.
True.
That's just kind of how it is, I mean, it's nothing wrong. Everybody's just got different personalities and different passions. So yeah, I mean, the fact that you bring that up, I think is really a good point, because I mean, it's like just to kind of do a thing just to achieve or to make money. I mean, we can do that anywhere, but when you actually apply passion to it, it creates that experience that you don't forget. John mentioned like a couple of things that we went to. Um, I went to I went to a networking event and how it was organized and how we were at tables of four and then we would get up and move to another table of four. Like I loved that because for me, I'm a functional introvert. So if I walk into a room and there's just a bunch of people standing around and this is a quote unquote networking event, I'm like immediately fear, like because I feel like I'm walking in on an
Mhm.
intimate conversation uninvited. But the way this was organized, it gave an experience of here's some food, here's some folks, you know what you're there for, and you got a limited time and you can go and move to another table. It was kind of like that, like speed dating, I guess. I don't know. I've never speed dated. I'm just using that as an example, but it kind of helps people understand that. But the experience of that left a mark, and I remembered that, and I would definitely go back and do another one when they did it that way because it encouraged conversation, quick conversation too.
Yeah. Well, and it took the onus off of you to work the room,
Yes.
right? It made the function work the room for you instead of the other way around. Because a lot of people go to networking events and like you said, they're overwhelmed. They don't know how to network. They don't know how to work the room.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some people, like I have a tendency. I like to be the guy in the corner that allows the gravitational pull, which this doesn't work, right? I fully know that this doesn't work, but I'm like, yeah, you people come to me, not because I'm lazy, but I just don't typically go out. I have to force myself to go out and engage people out on the floor, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Depends on what you're wearing.
well, yeah, that's true. But ordinarily, you walk into those settings, there's no logical starting point.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of bodies, and you have no strategic rationale for why you should go approach any one of those people. So it's like what my grandma used to say. She worked in the food industry, and she always complained if we went in a restaurant and the menu was too big. There's too many things here. I don't know what to pick. It's the same way in one of those situations. There's too many people here. I don't know who to talk to.
Right.
I don't know where to start.
Yeah. You have decision shock, and you can't
Right.
you can't do anything.
Analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and there also tends to be, I mean, they cluster, right? People tend to cluster around people they already know or they already have some connection with. So then you have this psychological effect of like, oh, I'm gonna interrupt something, right? It's like, well,
I'm intruding.
Yeah, I'm intruding, right? Everyone is there for the same reason. They're all there to talk and meet somebody and find that next connection to meet the next person that's going to help them do whatever XYZ is, right? That's why you go to those events and see them. But
Yeah.
it's can be difficult especially if you're a more introverted person.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. The other thing is too, like going to some of those events when people kind of get clustered together and you want to kind of like politely get in on what's going on. You start to find out that, they're not compatible to what it is you do, that you are there to try to make connections for, not to sell, not to close a deal, but just in general, like, I can't work with you. I can't help, because, if you're a franchise and the franchise is very controlling of the branding, I mean, I'm pretty much it's dead, and then you got that uncomfortable moment where you're like, well, it's nice meeting you. See you later. I'm going to go over here and hope somebody's over here. You kind of have that, and that I hate.
It's like you're branded.
That's kind of my thing with like, a lot of events. And it's not me being critical because I've never done it. And I know I'm not cut out to organize and host an event and have people walk away and be like, wow, that was exceptional. But I do feel like a lot of these, especially the the loose networking events, like it's kind of just like, oh, well, if we build it, people will come and they'll have a great experience. And it stops there.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, most people are not the type of people who can walk in a room and just light up everybody. And like you said, that have that gravitational pull. Most people are forcing themselves out of their comfort area and they need kind of this, to me, that's an area where a lot of chambers and networking groups could really, start putting some pen to paper on how can we get the majority of the population who is not talkers and super extroverted people to have a good experience to show up, because I don't even want to show up to a lot of them because of that. I know I'm just going to kind of be like, all right, well,
Yeah,
I'm like you, man. I'm like, I want people to come to me. I'm glad to talk to you, but I need people to come to me.
I take Mitch mostly with me to networking events because of what John just said. Because if I ask John, I just see his eyes light up and go like, "Oh God, please don't drag me to this." And I'm
I
like,
mean, in a one-on-one meeting or a little group setting where I'm, in a sales scenario, no problem. But we go out to an event and you've got a small talk to get to the real talk.
yeah,
I'm out. You got to set up something like the tables, or uh, breakout sessions or something like that to give a lot of people that opportunity to
well,
feel comfortable
objects like a
speaking up.
table, they're strategic because they provide a like a space between you and them. It provides a safe space, to use
Hmm.
that term. When you don't have a table, that's not there, and I think the anxiety goes up as a result. So the event that I was at, there was a table. I was sitting next to somebody in reasonable distance, but at the end of the day, there was a table there. We all felt comfortable sitting there, like we were going to sit down and have a meal, and that really helped out a lot. Um, so yeah, ergonomics in a room. That's really important if you've got the space
What's
to do.
it's user experience.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about user experience, and it all really ties back to kind of storytelling, right? I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
what's the story that the event's trying to tell, and
Mhm.
how it's trying to get everybody engaged, but then also what's the story that you yourself and every other individual are going to take away from it and share with somebody else, right? Because at the end of the day, you want, if you're an event having a networking event, you want people to come back. And so in order to have people to come back, you have to have other people talk about your event positively,
Mhm.
so that they're spreading that word,
Hmm.
and that they then say, "Oh yeah, I remember going to that event. You should go to this. I'm going to go. Why don't you come with me?" Or whatever the scenario is.
Right.
Yeah.
It's customer acquisition and retention. And I think that gets missed a lot with the recurring networking events. It's like you've got to have your staple people, your people who are comfortable being there and starting conversations. But there's no value in networking with the same people over and over and over. You've got to have this influx of new people coming in
Yep.
to to generate referrals and generate the value of a networking event or
Yeah.
any kind of event.
I see some chamber people, and not to be critical, but there's few that I've met that actually will, like, if there's a group of 3 or 4 people, there's a chamber person there. And I think that's a great idea because that person, they're not there to network, they're there to facilitate. They can actually facilitate the conversation and generate an experience by just being there. But when I've seen some at some events, all the chamber people, they all get clumped together and they're doing like what everybody else is doing. And it's like, no, spread out. Go here, go here, go help people converse.
Yeah, like going to a
You're
party where you're going and you have some friends there, and those friends you're relying on them to kind of grease the wheels with the other 20 people there. Or you're probably not going to talk to the other 20 people.
yeah.
I mean, it's all human nature. I mean, you'd see the same thing at a trade show, right? I go to a trade show, and all of the salespeople are all together, clumped together in little packs, talking to themselves and not talking to the attendees, which is the whole reason why you're there, right? You're there to spread the word of your brand, you know, proselytize, tell about it, whatever the message is. But yet, the people that you have there to do it are talking amongst themselves and not going out. So it was always constantly trying to make sure you set it up in such a way that those little groups could be broken up easily. They'd get spread out, and talk to the attendees. And it's also hard in the fact, like in where I was at, those sales managers are coming in from all over the country. They only get to see each other a couple of times a year, and those are their friends in other regions, right? And they want to get caught up. And it's like, okay, well, you need to make sure you've got time built in to that event for them to do that, and it's not time when they're on the show floor.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Because I mean, you do have a culture internally in your company you want to maintain and keep healthy. Because if that gets toxic, that just spreads out, and other people see it. Eventually your dirty laundry will be on your front yard. I mean, it just you got to make sure you don't let that happen. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody thank you for joining us. I want to thank everybody out there for listening. We do run across folks who are like, hey, I caught your all's podcast. So we thank you for that. Be sure to go to YouTube, search for NerdBrand, like and subscribe, leave a nice comment. I know that's sometimes not the case for the internet, but
Leave a mean
Ring the
comment.
bell.
yeah, if you leave a mean comment, I mean, just block you, I guess, but leave you a script on the wall. But um, anyways, on the other socials, you can find us at NerdBrand Agency is where you can find us there, even including LinkedIn. And then you go to nerdbrandagency.com/podcast. Listen to a brand new episode of this podcast every Friday at 9 a.m. And I say 9 a.m. because sometimes I wake up and go, oh, right, got to put that out there. And it's at 9:30. So
Just look worse.
just a little bit, yeah. But yeah, we'll thank everybody there, and we'll remind everybody, keep your nerd brand strong.